President Trump mentioned Secretary of State Marco Rubio as a possible successor, along with Vice President Vance as he considers who would take over as leader of his Make America Great Again or MAGA movement. Trump told NBC News' Kristen Walker that it is too early to say who would become his successor, but he said Vance is doing a fantastic job. When asked whether Vance is at the top of his list, Trump said he could be, but he doesn't want to get involved in that. I think Vance is a fantastic, brilliant guy, he said in an interview on Meet the Press that aired Sunday. Marco is great. There's a lot of them that are great. I also see tremendous unity, but certainly you would say that somebody's the VP. If that person is outstanding, I guess that person would have an advantage. But I think the other people would all say in unbelievably high positions, he added. But it could be that he'd be challenged by somebody. We have a lot of good people in this party. Trump's naming of Rubio comes on the heels of Secretary of State taking an increasingly high profile. He was named interim national security advisor after Mike Waltz left his position on Thursday. Trump said he believes the MAGA movement can survive without him as the leader, drawing strength from a tremendous group of people. He points specifically to Vance and Rubio, but said he could name 10 to 20 people. Trump previously said it was too early to name Vance as a successor, but called him very capable. Earlier polls have shown Vance as a favorite to possibly be the GOP nominee in 2028. Walker also pressed Trump on the ongoing murmurs of Trump possibly seeking a third term, which he has outright rejected. He said, so many people want me to do it, but to the best of my knowledge, he can't. I don't know if that's constitutional, that they're not allowing you to do it or anything else. He said, but there are many people selling the 2028 hat, but this is not something I'm looking to do. I'm looking to have 4 great years turned over to somebody, ideally a great Republican to carry it forward. He said some supporters have come to him presenting ways he could do it, but he's not looking into that. So, it makes a lot of sense that he would look at someone like Rubio, because you gotta remember that Vance previously called Trump, compared him to a certain German chancellor, or chancellor rather, yeah. And when you think of all the barbs that he and Rubio exchanged back in 2016, it's not that surprising that he could switch over to supporting him as his replacement. Trump has gone out of his way to kind of like turn Florida into his new home state, Mar-a-Lago being over there, and then having, Bondi, who was the Florida Attorney General, as his Attorney General, then have Rubio, who's the first Floridian Secretary of State, etc. He's really, it would all follow that mantra of like pushing further and further people and, groups from Florida. But where I kind of start to draw a little bit of an issue is that, isn't it amazing that at the same time as he's discussing the possibility of handing this over to someone else, he's also saying, oh yeah, people are coming to me with ways on how I can have a third term. So if I, and it's like if he could, and I'm not saying he can, there's no chance that Rubio or Vance or any of these other people would have any chance of defeating him, at least for the Republican nomination. So it's even more like just kind of talking to the both sides out of your mouth, just like you can't really pick which angle you're going to go with. Am I going to be the statesman who is just serving out his last 4 years of leading the MAGA movement? Or am I going to, be the politician who's seeking to further extend his tenure in the White House? It's both sides is what he's doing. The other part that's interesting is that he says that the MAGA movement without him would, be fine. I completely disagree with that. He has been the one unifying figure for Republicans over the last 9 years. And once he's out of the way, they're not going to have anyone to coalesce around. Because, like, go back to Trump's first term. Would you really, if you're looking at that period, 2016, 2020, and then, just kind of like even further, you probably would have believed that Pence would be a successor. But now you look at how they are at this point, they can't stand Pence. All it takes for Republican voters who might sit there and gush about somebody else to turn on that person is for them to lose favor with Trump. Look at DeSantis. There were talks of him possibly being Trump's running mate, in the last election cycle. And now people can't stand him. They don't talk about him anymore. He doesn't get promoted. He's turned into a ghost because he fell out of favor with the one figure that the party is unified around. And I guess what I'm getting at is, Rubio is looking cute to him right now, and so is Vance. But if they do anything that is not lockstep with him for the next several years, and it becomes publicly known, or he, badmouths them, it's over. Because the truth is, and I always say this, very few politicians have a legitimate, genuine group of supporters. And the support of most of these Republicans is so skin deep, or so thin, that all it takes is a rebuke from Trump, and their approval goes in the garbage. People liked Haley, right, before she left Trump's cabinet and ran against him last year, and now they can't stand her. So that's why I said all it takes for one of these people to fall out of favor with him is just to turn on him, even in like the slightest of ways. And that's why I said I agree that it's too early to name Vance as successor, because like I said, you could see Vance say something that Trump doesn't like, and then he starts holding out on him when the primary starts heating up. But it's incredible that none of these people, like the Republicans have, he claimed there were 10 to 20 people he could name that could be successors of his. The Republicans are going to have a real problem in election cycle. Like, there's a reason why when Trump gave his, I think it was his CPAC speech for 2023, he said that the 2024 election would be the final battle. And in a lot of ways, he was correct. That after, like, whether he won the election or not, it was presumed that he was not going to run again in 2028, and I don't think he's really going to run again in 2028. But the Republicans are going to have a really big problem with trying to find someone else that they all rally behind. Whoever gets nominated is going to be seen by some of them as not being conservative enough, not being moderate enough. It's going to be a real mess. You could come that next cycle, and possibly for I'm sure at some point over the course of history, they'll like get other people that actually are supported by a majority of them. But I'm just saying that there's no chance that Vance or Rubio or any of them are going to be able to carry on the supposed MAGA movement without Trump being there and giving his endorsement, because that's all their popularity is about. Who does Trump like most? If he doesn't like you and he turns on you, you're done. You're out of here. Vance, in all honesty, is a guy that wrote a book that people say was pretty good, who was senator for like 2 years, is not really known for having any specific views other than the whole childless cat lady's comments. Rubio is a guy that basically got passed up in 2012 to be Romney's running mate. Ran for president, fizzled out without really getting that many votes. I think, won like one state, and then kind of just sat in the Senate and bootlicked for Trump until he got a promotion. But these people, no one likes them. Certainly not enough to where they can win a primary without getting Trump's endorsement. So I don't think he's going to have a legitimate successor. It's basically going to be, well, I can't be president anymore, so let's just pick some idiot out of a hat, and then hopefully my endorsement and my record, which is already shaping up to be pretty crappy, will be enough to carry them into the White House after me, which I don't think is going to happen, but we'll see.